And welcome everybody to the wonderful summer of Antarctica 1933. It's early mid-November. The sun is sitting just above the horizon, regardless of what time of day it actually is. And we find the SS Gabrielle pulled in alongside the ice mass at the edge of the big frozen bay down by the volcanoes that are sputtering ash just a few miles away. And there is the great work ongoing of emptying the ship as fast as humanly possible and getting all the gear of the expedition up to the safety of the actual ice plateau, because down here on the ice floe, there's always the risk of cracks appearing. The edges of the floe carve at irregular intervals, sending multi-ton blocks of ice falling into the sea. And should one of them happen to hit the Gabrielle, well, that's goodbye, everybody. So let's go around and find out who we have in the scene this glorious evening, so that it's not just me sitting here talking for everybody. So starting off with probably right now one of the most important people on the expedition, Big Seuss and her dogs, who are about to set off dragging supplies, I believe.
Well, we're just happy to get on the ice, and I'm looking forward to permafrost under my boots and a little bit of cold breeze on my face.
And continuing on from there, switching gears, dragging boxes out of the underbelly of the Gabrielle onto the deck, where they're lifted off down onto the big steel ramps that have been brought up. We find our good Dr. Tremblay.
Wow, wasn't expecting that. Definitely glad I was able to use my medical profession to help someone in their time of need, since things did go quite awry. And I was smartly spent most of my time sleeping and drinking. So I kind of recommend that for the rest of you.
Talking of sleeping and drinking, we have desperately packing up instruments and restowing boxes that have come loose during the tumultuous ride to the Southern Ocean, to prepare them for shipment up, well, wherever they happen to find space up on the plateau. Dr. Stoddard.
Ever since things went sideways, diagonal, crossways, there's been and the accident happened, Stoddard's been a little more anxious about how secure things have been packed. Most people seem to think that the damage to the holdings was from before we found the saboteur. He's not completely sure. He believes that. But he's glad we've made it to the ice, or made it to landfall, because it was everything that was going wrong was wearing on him a little bit. And this is, hey, we've made it. Okay, maybe we can have some hope again, like to the great unknown.
Perfect sentiment. And by no means least, we find further up forward on the Gabrielle, almost acrobatically hanging out between the ship's railing, camera in hand, documenting the febrile activity all around, our intrepid reporter.
Yes, Valentina's trying to stay busy because she's a little nervous, this being her first time on the ice. So we'll see how this goes.
And it is indeed a busy time. The entire crew and expedition is basically divided up into 4 work gangs. 3 of them are moving, 3 of you, or the gangs, are moving cargo off the ship, whilst the 4th is preparing a temporary camp on the thicker sea ice a few hundred yards further inland, so you'll at least have more than a couple of yards of ice underneath you. Quite clearly, first offloaded are the dogs and the prepared sleds. Now, there are 4 dog parties, including Big Susie's, 2 of whom are going to set off at once to try and find a path up the 1,000-foot, practically vertical escarpment up to the top of the ice plateau, where you're hoping to find somewhere where you can land the planes and set up a permanent camp. I don't know if the other half of the dog teams are just busy moving supplies back those vital 300 yards away from the sea edge of the Ross Sea, where the Gabrielle is currently moored up. I don't know, Suze, if you have a particular preference as to which particular task your dog teams are working on.
Well, one of my big things when I was in Alaska was trailblazing. I'm right here for it.
Absolutely. So Big Suze, together with Pulaski, set off on a I'll get there before you do, and if not, you owe me a bottle of something good run to try to find a reasonable path up. Meanwhile, other work that needs to go on is to get the tractors offloaded and assembled, because they're obviously going to need to be used to move the heavier equipment, the generators, the fuel for the aircraft, that sort of thing. Likewise, the aircraft need to be offloaded and reassembled, or the 3 that survived. Of course, one of the Boeings had just a little bit of structural damage when their engines started flying around the cargo space. I think I am going to start off by just having Big Suze roll a drive dog sled roll. Let's see how she does on.
That's a success of 66 under 75.
Beautiful. So you're heading off, and yeah, you're in your element. You've been waiting for months to be out and actually doing this. It's gloriously cold. It's about 0 degrees Fahrenheit, even at midday. And you're in your element. So I guess the rest of the expedition team have a choice. You could either be tractor crew, you could be aircraft crew, or you can be camp preparation crew.
I don't feel capable of any of those.
What was the first option again? I'm sorry.
Tractor crew.
You got to operate like a little mini tractor. I'll lug boxes. So that's aircraft for me.
Preparation crew, I guess.
Yep,
I think we set Stoddard on proper preparation anyway, so we'll keep him there.
Okay. Perfect. So I'm just going to go and make a random roll. For the tractor crew. They seem to be doing either particularly well or particularly poorly. We'll see what that came out to. Oh, yes, the tractors are assembled and tested and start hauling cargo from the shore back up to 300 or 400 yards to the temporary campsite in no time at all. And that's mostly some of the workmen on the expedition, so Lopez and Cole. Did I hear somebody say that we're going to help out, help Brennan do it with the aircraft crew?
Roger Weekly raises his hand up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you have a choice of 3 major skill areas sort of in use for this. There's pilot aircraft, there's mechanical repair, or there's specifically aircraft maintenance.
The character I'm not playing would probably, the other reason don't want to do aircraft is the character I'm not playing would technically be over there.
Okay.
So
just so that they might get a tick on the sheet, feel free to roll whatever is suitable for that.
Okay, you said aircraft maintenance. Let's see if I have that.
Oh, it was so close. Not even.
Remember, the problem with this sheet is I used the wrong sheet when I made it. That's why I have to rebuild it.
Yep, no worries.
Some of the stuff doesn't even exist now. I can't do aircraft maintenance. What was the other ones?
It
was pilot
aircraft or mechanical repair.
Okay, mechanical repair. That's the one.
Please
20,
ignore.
Hard success to help with mechanical repair.
Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Oh,
No.
yes.
Oh, you
Yeah,
can?
we
Okay.
Yeah. So, yes, you were about to say, please ignore the fumble.
No, I'm not saying anything.
But yeah, so Leonard Warwick, who's my backup who hasn't come into play because Stoddard has avoided being crushed by barrels of fuel and being washed over sea, is a military engineer, or former military, is no longer active duty, who has joined the expedition for that sort of, specifically for mechanical and engineering related knowledge, since there is various large machines and technology involved. So he was on the crew for working on the ship. or on the airplane after it got damaged, or getting the new one airworthy. Now that we're here,
it's just as well as he gets the chance to go over to the good Dr. Tremblay and politely suggest that perhaps Tremblay is better suited to helping rig the tents in camp, since it seems that rather than attaching the main bolts for the wing stays on one of the two remaining Boeings, the concept of righty-tighty, lefty-loosey got a little bit confused in good Roger's brain, and therefore it seems like he was about to leave the wing bolts in rather too loose a fashion.
All right, so I've basically been demoted. Got it. All right. I'll head over that way to the campsite.
politely, Warwick is a little more personable than Stoddard. He's a little less cranky.
So yeah, and the camp preparation crew is more sort of your traditional, just help out where you can. If you want to roll electrical repair or mechanical repair, you can, but in reality, it's more about digging basements, cutting snow blocks with ice axes, tying down temporary shelters, laying out radio aerials. So the crew boss and some of his helpers are basically running that team. So Packard and Cruz. But like I said, the electrical repair and mechanical repair roles are completely optional.
That's for where Tremblay is going, not for the
Yes.
We've already done the role in the plan. Okay.
Yes.
Warwick has electrical. Wasn't sure if you're asking for that for the ship.
No.
Am I the only one going there? Because I will refrain from wrecking things.
I think I seem to recall that Dr. Stoddard was also heading in that sort of general
Okay.
direction, possibly also with the well, Miss Russo has the option. The team bosses aren't going to put the women to hard slave labor unless they volunteer to.
She would do her best to help out, to feel useful. So if there's something that she can do, but if she's not experienced at it, she might not. But do you want a strength roll then, or what would it be over here?
I think for Valentina, let's call it a con roll to see how well she keeps up with the burly male chunk of flesh working alongside her in digging through the ice.
Not well. Well.
And that's quite all right. He's taken off to the side and handed somewhere something warm, quite possibly by the good Dr. Tremblay, in fact. It takes you about 12 hours or so in total over a couple of shifts to unload the ship, and it's a few more hours to establish the temporary camp. Meanwhile, the wafts of sulfurous smoke from the smoldering volcano drift over the teams now and then as you ceaselessly unload. So it's 6 o'clock on the morning of November the 15th. when the Gabrielle casts off from the ice and pulls free into the Ross ice pack again, leaving you for the first time completely icebound. Now, she can be idle out in the Ross Sea for weeks. Well, apart from the fact that she's got her powerful radio by which you intend to keep in contact with the rest of the world, particularly through Pabodie and the radio mast up outside of Arkham. And of course, she's close by enough that she could come in an emergency. Meanwhile, at your temporary camp, you've got your tents assembled, hot meals are prepared, both tractors are in constant use. One is hauling heavy loads from the shore, and the other is laboring to smooth the runway on the ice. The first aircraft, R.E. Scott, the Fairchild monoplane, is fairly quickly assembled, while the pieces of the two remaining Boeings, the Weddell and the Enderby, have been uncrated and are next up for final assembly. Most of your expedition's fuel remain near the shore. It's going to take several days to transport that into the 300 yards into the camp. But there's enough in camp so that you can fuel up the Fairchild once it's built. Now, for those of you that aren't Zeus and therefore perhaps less used to the Antarctic conditions, it's near perfect weather on the 15th. So the temperature reaches a sweltering 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Each breath of wind numbs your fingers and cheeks and bites deeply into any unprotected skins. Thus, your Arctic clothing is probably worn just about always. But even so, frostbite is your constant enemy. You frequently stop just to examine each other's faces, hands, for any signs of white spots or any other numbness, signs of freezing flesh. Of course, when you're moving cargo, digging, sweat is an issue, and that's a constant danger. You get damp cloth, it works its way into socks and shoes, and it freezes readily, immediately, wherever it cools. So the slightest trace of moisture in boots or gloves can lead to frostbite and gangrene, which is a problem. So you're constantly on the watch. You're constantly having to take breaks to move away, cool down a bit, dry out before returning. Now, of course, meanwhile, those of you actually working with machinery, or even more noticeably mechanics, this is that you have a different problem. It's very difficult to do fine mechanical tasks wearing 2 and 3 layers of thick winter gloves. So you find that you have to go down to thin gloves or even bare hands, but exposed skin has this wonderful tendency to freeze to bare metal immediately at those sort of temperatures. So you have to go really slowly and really carefully. The number of times you just stop, put your hands inside your parka's arms to try to bring back some feeling before continuing to tighten that one final nut does slow things down quite a bit. Also, the icy surface where you camped is rough and uneven, pushed up into a million small spikes and ridges by the pressures of water and wind. And between those ridges, snow is caught to varying depths, sometimes fresh, but often packed heavily into hard layers. So whenever you move around, you hear the squeak and squeal of the beneath your cleats on your boots. And you'll walk 4, 5, 10 paces, and suddenly a boot will drop 3 to 6 inches as you step onto a piece of looser snow underneath you. However, where there isn't any snow, you've got yards of solid ice, and you're warmer than the ice. So it is, if you stand still for but a few moments, it's like standing on skates when you don't know how to skate. It's very, very slippery, to the point that I'm going to have everybody make a luck roll.
Do we have snowshoes?
Oh, yeah.
I was
With
going to
cleats.
ask if we have cleats. Okay.
Yeah.
So I in real life, I'm someone who's actually done like snow camping and stuff. I will try not to let reality overwrite stuff. I've gone below zero weather. So yeah, if anyone needs descriptions on what frostbite looks like, I do have experience with that. I've gotten superficial frostbite a couple times. Yeah, though I will say you don't freeze instantly at zero because it's Fahrenheit, not Celsius. Or
Well,
it wasn't too bad. It's -20 that starts getting nasty.
Yeah, well, yeah, -0 Fahrenheit is about -19 Celsius. And I would say you've got maybe 20 minutes, half an hour of standing around if you're not moving.
Yeah, if you're not
there's
moving,
no wind.
we're active.
Yeah, I was gonna say it depends on the wind.
Stefan, you and I have been. I mean, this one when New England winters. Our characters from when New England winters used to be cold. We've dealt with this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've stood outside -38 Celsius waiting for a train to arrive at midnight.
Yeah, that's not fun.
So
my favorite part is the icicles that collect under your nose when you have a beard.
Ooh, yeah, that's always good.
There was a time of that for me.
Also, when you wear really thick woolen mittens, you get that thing that happens to dogs, where they start accumulating ice and snow in the fur.
Yeah, but at least the wool's not as bad when it gets as the cotton. Cotton is not good wet in the cold.
I hear you.
True story. One of the worst things that I've ever had to do in an outdoor survival situation was my boots, and it was cold out, but the water was warm. It still leaks, so I had to squeeze the water out of my boots or out of my socks, and everything was then felt. It was painful because I went from warm water to these now cooled down, wrung off wool socks because the wool was like, yeah, we're warm. Until I had to take them off. Like it needed to be done because, hypothermia and other things are not great, but sometimes you have to make yourself really miserable to stay safe.
Exactly.
So yeah, we're all dealing with some cold. A lot of flushing of the cheeks are probably all pretty red. Nose is red. I'm guessing there's probably some snow glare. Dealing with that a bit.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, the snow. You say snow glare.
Ice glare, sun glare.
The ice in Antarctica being pristine gives a really, really unique and strange effect. Which is when you look around, you get a almost continuous mirage effect where you see the parts of the ice mass sort of sitting up over the horizon because of the reflection of the captured water. And that has a really odd distance distorting effect. So small things can appear really far away, and large things look really closer than they are, and they sort of shift in and out. So if you look a couple of miles away to some ice protrusion, at once it's both really close by and really far away. And it is this really weird outworldly effect. It's like the entire continent is some sort of illusion that could just shatter at a moment's notice. Now, of course, this being Antarctica, you're not alone by any means. In fact, it's but a few hours before the first emperor penguins start to arrive, hang out on the ice shore, squawking occasionally. These large 5-foot tall black-bodied, yellow-white abdomens. And then they're joined shortly thereafter by the more sort of traditional, what people think of, the Adele penguins, more sort of 2-3 foot tuxedo, black-white, and they wander everywhere. You know, they'll walk straight up, straight past you, not pay you any heed whatsoever. In fact, they don't pay any heed about moving tractors, which leads to a couple of rather screeched brake application scenarios, as whoever is driving the tractor tries to avoid running them over. But perhaps well, at least to at least to the dog sled people, to Pulaski, when he returns, the best guess of all are the large, fat Weddell seals that also hang out, almost grotesque in their fatness, on the edge of the water. Yet again, completely innocuous of being there, to the point that Pulaski is able to just take a pickaxe, walk up, and brain one of them. After which he gets some help to pull the carcass up to the temporary camp, where he sets to just roughly slaughtering the animal and feeding his pack of dogs because they've been particularly good. He's absolutely delighted and says, I tell the dogs they've done well. You should try some. This is really good eating, as he sets to just chewing on a piece of blubber. It's, of course, entirely up to you what your feelings are about raw seal meat. But at the very least, it's not pemmican.
And, you know, depending on how voracious everything is. I mean, a seal's pretty big. We should actually have the ability to do some sort of cooking of it before it's all gone.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Though I feel like Susan's dogs should get some too.
Indeed. And speaking...
Does anyone want to explain to me what these big, fluffy critters running around are? Never seen them before.
They're good eats.
So for context, which are Sue's fluffy critters?
She'd be talking about the penguin. She's never seen one
thank you.
before.
My brain, I don't think of penguins as fluffy, so I had to ask.
Understandable. No, seals are in the north, but penguins aren't. She would have never seen one before.
Let's see. How familiar would this boy be with them? He is a biologist, so yeah, he'd know about them, at least enough to know penguin. They're a native bird type around here. They're swimmers. They don't really fly.
So, big puffins?
Close enough, yeah. Penguins.
Are they good for eating?
I mean, I don't think I've tried one, but I have to imagine they've got to be. They're definitely cold weather birds, which means good fat layer, and they're certainly sizable enough that there's probably some good meat on them.
We'll have to remember that for later.
Nothing could ever go wrong with us trying to eat penguins later on in this adventure.
I know in real life polar bear will kill you, so penguin could be in the same boat.
I in real life have no clue about the edibility of penguins, but I feel like they actually probably are good eating, so that's what I ran with.
I think they're naturally boiled down into oil.
Yeah, we're in an Arctic situation, so fatty animal is like that's the way to go.
And it is indeed not too much later on the 15th that Big Zeus gets to radio back to the camp. They found a navigable trail up onto the barrier, and even better, an excellent campsite not far beyond that. Since the Scots' first flight is scheduled for later that afternoon, plans are made afoot to try to do an overflight and see what the situation is. And not to leave them out, it's less than an hour later that the camp gets a call from the ship that apparently Acacia Lexington's expedition has flown nonstop over the South Pole in their monoplane, the Bell, and returned safely to their base camp on the barrier, which is about 8 miles down the coast from where you are. Starkweather, oddly enough, seems to receive that news more in silence than in anger, which is a little bit certainly unusual. So by 2:15 on the 15th, the Fairchild, the Scott, takes to the air, lifting easily from its rough runway up into the still and cloudless skies, Halpern and Longfellow at the controls. It takes a 2-hour flight, overflies Big Sue's suggested campsite. It does overfly the Lexington expedition camp, waggling its wings, and then heads off south and west to the barrier surrounding hills before returning. And the flight crew is as elated as Big Zeus was when she got to head out on her initial sled run. After all, this is what they came for. So the work begins now in earnest to lengthen the runway here at the initial camp, assemble the Boeings. Starkweather is unusually quiet, but is staying out of the way, although he has insisted that work continue round the clock and through the sunlit night. So there's essentially three shifts of the 4 teams working on getting things ready for the journey up to actual base camp. So it takes a few days, and it's a mass of aircraft engine noise. As you start to airlift the expedition to its new home some 40 miles away, you reckon that it's going to be about 6 days or so to move everything. The reason for the hurry is explained by Professor Moore, who says that within a month, the sea ice upon which we now stand will break up and float away. We need to be on top of the barrier by then. When we leave in 3 months' time, we shall load directly from the barrier itself, feat which currently is too dangerous to attempt. So by the afternoon of the 17th, you have two. Yep.
Connected from the column. Welcome back.
Ooh,
Laughing.
wonderful. Thank
Getting
you.
bad connection at your hotel.
Apparently I am. I think it's fortunately just amongst us, as it were. We'll see how.
It's going the way of your connection.
Yep, we'll see how it keeps on. But yes, I see what you're saying. There we go. Take a deep breath and it all, well, mostly returns. So yes, there's a couple of days of frantic 24-hour activity. And by the afternoon of November 17th, the base camp is firmly established.
No thanks to me.
Up on the smooth ice on the barrier. So more than half of the explorers have made their way up, including 3 of the sled teams, the 2 tractors, but more than half of the exploration team, at least 3 sled teams, the 2 tractors, and a half a dozen general men remain on the sea ice to load the aircraft with the rest of the gear. And it's I need to see here. To go here. And then so
Well-
early on the 18th, you're more or less gathered together in a group. With a tractor sled team going up the ice towards the barrier line, and it's about 20 to 11 in the morning when suddenly there's a large crack and that reverberates through the camp as a gash opens up in the ice, running more than 100 yards inland from the shore with a deep, rippling pop. Over the next couple of hours, it lengthens further, and two other huge fishes appear, spearing inland from the open sea, one seemingly aimed directly at the camp, and the other threatened to cut off the remaining supplies from the safety of the runway. There is a hurried radio message that goes out to the aircraft and the barrier camp of the trouble, and everybody is all hands on ice to save what can be saved. You spend hours rushing against time as the cracks in the ice multiply and move inexorably towards the camp. You take load after load of food, supplies, gasoline drums, dragging them inland and stacking them up by the runway. And each time the planes come in, they don't even shut down the engines. They barely turn around at the end of the runway. You're just immediately loading as much as you can, as fast as you can into them, whilst the cracks grow ever closer. The Gabrielle starts steaming in towards you to help, but she's a fair distance away, and she's not going to get hit till next morning. And at 3:00, a new fissure opens up inland of the seaside cache, directly in front of one of the tractors, and it's all that the crew can do but just stand back and watch as the tractor and two of its attached sleds just topples over and falls into the abyss below. The airlift continues for about another 3 hours, but the cracks keep growing, and you can tell the end is getting near. The remaining two tractors are attached to short trains of heavy pallets and head off following the dog trail overland to try to get what can be moved out of the camp along with you. Everybody else gets to follow on foot or on skis, snowshoes, whatever you have. Of course, in the midst of all of this, the wind is picking up. You've got 40 miles to cover. With the wind, even with the slightest wind, you get moments of absolute whiteout as the snow just drifts, and you can barely see 2 feet in front of you. And it's come as you leave, you hear a loud crack, and you can see one of the cracks making its way across the runway as one of the Boeing.
Oh, I lost him.
Yep, he just dipped out.
The ice got him.
Yep.
So who else thinks this is the cursed expedition and we should have been on the other one?
It probably seems that way. It's not going well.
I'm sure Suze keeps up because she thought this was a good campsite.
Oh, so you're the one we're blaming for this current fiasco?
I hope not, but you know, if it happens, it happens.
Okay. Should be me back.
Are we back recording then?
Yeah. Well, you've been on throughout. It's just that I had
Okay.
the battery failed in my camera, so, and since that was running the mic as well, that didn't help. I need to find a charge for that. Things on the joys of recording on the road. So apologies to everyone. So yes, the Weddell breaks off its final, well, what would have been its final flight had it continued, and just returns to the main base camp up on the ice field, which is a good camp. So Suze needn't feel bad about that. Everybody agrees that main camp is good. Unfortunately, that does cost you about half of your remaining aircraft fuel supply, as it's cut off by the crevasses from your retreat. You continue moving through the night as the temperature dips yet further still. The wind picks up. So, and with the roughening sea and the increasing shelving of the ice from the barrier, Captain Friedenberg has to give up his rescue plans and withdraw the Gabrielle from the shore. It's just simply too dangerous for them to approach. But I would like everybody to make Constitution rolls.
Valentina's having bad luck with Constitution rolls.
I'm over by 1, so I'm going to spend 1 luck. Because, no, that's just rude.
And us Northerners, Big Suze and Roger Tremblay are like, pfft.
I suspect that probably also means that there is a little bit of illicit sharing of liquid trail rations between the pair of you.
Well, how else are we staying warm?
Absolutely. And you find there's some cases of minor frostbite, but nothing actually threatening, and that can't be healed with a little bit of care. And it's about noon the next day that you finally make it into the barrier camp, base camp, on November 19th. It's blustery, there's falling snow, poor visibility, but the aircraft have been tied down securely within their makeshift shelters. But you haven't had much time, if any, to really build up base camp. The buildings that have been erected are barely enough to hold the entire expedition standing up. But of course, you also have your dug-in tents, and that's pretty much the first thing that you set to doing is dig in yet more tents when you get there. And whilst the circumstances aren't necessarily the best, you're finally here. You're on the shelf. And you have a camp that's there and ready to use. You have the afternoon to just do something you haven't done in what feels like a man age, which is sit down and rest. And whilst work continues on getting tents up and buried in, because the wind is prevailing mostly from the southwest. So what you end up doing is cutting out large ice blocks that you use as windbreaks, and then you dig down into the ice and snow behind that to put down your tents. But there's other things to work on. There's the weather shack. There's the laboratories. So I'm sure that Professor Stoddard, for instance, is going to be preparing his shack or the shared geology shack, setting up instruments, etc. A dark room gets built, as well as the aircraft hangars. But the aircraft hangars aren't complete yet, so they'll take a little while. Meanwhile, the planes are just tied down out in the wind, being checked upon practically constantly by one of the aircrew or another. Also, because visibility is so poor and whiteouts happen every 10, 15 minutes as you walk around, what they do is that they set up a great deal of colored flags, and there is a code to the colored flags. So the north of the camp, they're green. East of the camp, they're blue. South of the camp, they're red. And west of the camp, they're black. So if you see a flag and you have a compass, and of course, compasses have a tendency not to be very accurate here at the South Pole, but you're quite a ways from the magnetic South Pole still. So there is only about a 40-degree difference between geographical north and magnetic north at the moment here at the camp. But it's enough that it's possible at least to set out flags that will help you find your way back to the camp should you lose sight of the camp in a whiteout. And those flags go out that you as time goes by, you keep putting out more and more flags. At first, they're only a few 100 yards out, but over the next period of days, that will extend out to probably more than a mile. And I'd like to ask our intrepid explorers how they're taking advantage of their, as it were, afternoon and evening off.
I'm gonna hand something over to Big Suze, just real quiet. Shh, don't tell anyone. That's probably what it's gonna be. We're singing songs by the evening, by the way. What songs would you like to sing, Big Suze? I only know French ones, unfortunately.
I probably know a few French ones. I don't speak French, but I know them.
Well,
I have a feeling enough Canucks came through my way. Cuddling with dogs, singing songs, and enjoying some trail rations. Sounds like a wonderful evening.
with a campfire, right? Because you can light campfires in the bitter cold. They still work.
There's enough shelter, particularly in behind the shelters that set up that the big Boeings are lined up behind
To protect it all
could,
from the wind.
yeah.
Would it be possible for Valentina to hunt up a flare gun when she has time?
Oh, certainly.
She feels like the possibility of her getting lost is probably pretty high, and a flare gun might help her get found by somebody.
That sounds perfectly correct. And yes, no problem with that. There's certainly at least a good dozen available in one of the supply crates. And how about our good Professor Stoddard?
That's what I've been trying to think about. I think he's trying to. He is trying to relax. He's having a little trouble with it. But there's also a certain level where he is a little bit older. So while he may not be relaxing, his body's like, no, you're taking some, it's like the going, but there's sort of like, okay, we've had a hard couple days after being on ship, so we need to get back into condition. So it's probably like just trying to stay warm and not stiffen up too much in the cold.
Wonderful.
Oh, actually, yes, there was a thing because his roommate is the actual archaeologist, if I remember.
Oh, yes.
Archaeologist. What's the other name? Anthropologist. Does anthropology, whereas Stoddard is more in the realm of biology and paleontology. So he's actually curious about the stone they found, which was it? We found the leather pouch with the odd sea creature coins, like it's sort of like a merman type thing, and I don't really think there's been a chance to ask about it because we've been just nonstop. So, see if he's seen anything about it or knows anything like it.
So yes, that would be Dr. Myers, Charles Myers. Let's have a look and see if I've managed to get him loaded. He's a bit perplexed. In his West Coast Stanford accent goes, yeah, I was puzzled by them myself. Can't they're clearly of some unusual source. Who knows? Perhaps we'll find out. We'll be able to find more clues to that mystery as we progress. Maybe there'll be something up at the lake camp once we get there.
Do you really think there's a chance of currency in a civilization? That seems a little far-fetched, even with the reports. Especially, why would they be on this ship that would have never had a way of getting inland?
Well, I have come to the realization that few people are as likely to provide strange and unusual tales as a group of sailors gathered around a bar ashore. So I'm tempted to keep an open mind until things show themselves otherwise. But it's intriguing.
I'll try to keep an open mind as well.
And that perfectly leads in to me being able to ask everybody to make power rolls.
Oh my, it has begun. You're muted.
I was talking at the dice roller. 7 out of over 60.
This is one of those rolls, though, that failing could be actually better than succeeding as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide whether I want to spend luck or not. You know what? I'll take the hit if it's something bad at this point. Especially because if it's something bad, it actually would make sense for it to hit Stoddard because it's probably related to these coins he's carrying around.
I would
Valentine
say
barely passed it, so.
Yeah, actually, given this set of rolls, I wouldn't worry about the luck for Stoddard.
I was going to, at this stage of power rolls, I was going to accept if it was something bad. You know, So yeah.
Yeah. It's well, I don't know that it's necessarily something bad in the classic Call of Cthulhu sense, but it's not surprising to me that the two people that happen to be up and react more or less instantly are Roger and Big Suze huddled around the campfire.
Nice and sauced.
Yeah, well, it at this point it's 3 a.m. on November 20th. So yeah, you've had it's been a convivial night,
Lots of
and you
songs.
sort lots of songs. You've lost track of time uh, with the 24-hour sunshine and all that, and you hear across the camp the soft ringing of a bell. You know that bell. That's the radio alarm bell.
I go running for the radio.
That means someone's trying to contact us, I assume.
That's what LaRoche has tried to instill in everybody over the last 6 weeks. That bell goes off when somebody is sending a distress signal on the radio.
I follow Big Suze. I'm right behind to see what the what all the hubbub is about, I suppose.
And yeah, so you're practically the first into the radio tent as you hear the strong signal cutting through the static. Da 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 da.
Is that sounds like
As
SOS?
it is. As LaRoche comes running in, and all of a sudden the radio key noise stops, and you hear a voice cutting through. Help! If you can hear me, lend a party at once. The camp, it is under attack. This is Tony Hopewell calling. Tallahassee, Mac, can you hear me? There, and it goes quiet.
What camp was that?
LaRoche, to that just as it goes quiet is of course when Starkweather comes running in a state of, for Arctic weather, practically complete undress. I mean, he's only got 2 layers on. And it's just as Suze asks what camp is that you hear a faint hollow rumble like thunder roll across the camp from the north. At which point, Starkweather grabs the pair of binoculars from the peg by the door, runs out, heading for the high ground just outside the camp. I don't. If anybody wishes to follow him, and at this point, the others in the group have sort of managed to come to, and with the rumble from outside, you can even see on the pale horizon through the murky low clouds a pale red orange glow on the northern horizon. But everybody is basically awake at this point.
I'm definitely following Starkweather with the binoculars because I am full of anxiety right now, wondering what the hell is going on. And yeah, I need to find out.
Agreed.
So Stoddard probably doesn't make it into the tent, so he's probably like coming over as people are coming out. And the rumble, the first thought is, oh no, is it the ice? And then he sees the what sounds like an explosion on the horizon. If I'm interpreting that correctly, he wouldn't have been. I don't think you'd have binoculars because not things that he would think to grab at 3 a.m. And he's just kind of like, there's that moment of, oh God, what's happening?
So you, yeah, Tremblay makes it up to the northern rise that somewhat shelters the camp, together with Starkweather, and you bring up your binoculars, and there's clearly a sign of some distant fire or some such a ways away. The low clouds and the snow sort of keep drifting in the way, so you don't really have a good visibility to it. Meanwhile, Dr. Moore has started to get the camp a little bit organized, and he's asking Suze and Pulaski if you can ready your sleds. We're probably going to end up sending out a rescue party that that looks like it's come from the direction of the Lexington camp.
I'm on it.
I was gonna ask that next. Oof.
And I called ours the cursed camp. Maybe
No,
not.
the whole continent's cursed.
Oh yes.
Maybe
yes.
all of us are. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to do well in the long run.
I feel like we're doing better than they are.
Meanwhile, Stoddard, being sort of left in the midst of the calm of the chaos, overhears Laroche, the radio operator, come outside and have a word with Dr. Moore, as he says, "Ça was Hopewell, the radio man for Lexington. He said only what you heard, only that the camp was attacked. I did manage to call the Tallahassee, and Macaulay, her radio man, he told me that Acacia's fuel cache and mess hall appeared to be ablaze, along with several of the tents. They can't see much from the ship. The haze shifts and obscures the shore, but the men on watch reported hearing gunshots, and everyone can see the polar smoke over the scene. There is no answer on the radio. But Tallahassee is helpless. It's far too dangerous for her to come alongside the ice, even to put the party ashore, and there's just, nowhere for a small boat to land. It's at that point that Starkweather strides in, grabs the microphone from Laroche, and goes, "Tallahassee, this is Starkweather. I'm preparing an overland party. It's only 8 miles, so we ought to be there shortly. I'm taking food, fuel, and medical supplies, but we cannot afford to bring a radio, so I'll fire off 2 white flares when we arrive. Do you understand? Tell your captain not to worry. We'll do everything we can." He flashes a delighted grin at the group that are gathered in the radio hut. Suddenly, every inch the heroic adventurers. "Oh, come on, you lot. I want you. Oh, and them too. Get Trombley. And everyone with first aid training to be ready for a little trek in 15 minutes. We've a young lady to rescue.
How do I'm gonna have to sober up a little bit, but I'm sure that'll be okay.
Hey, you've got 8 miles in the Arctic at 4 in the morning. By the time we get there, you'll be plenty of sober.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm starting to remember riding in a skidoo, that fresh air blowing at you.
Mm-hmm.
Out of character, I can't wait.
My
for
dogs are
Why don't you
ready.
win this man.
Well, my
So,
dogs are ready. I'm ready to go.
okay. So, since you've been personally requested by Starkweather to accompany him on his daring rescue mission of the unfortunate Miss Acacia, what all are you bringing along?
So in my case, it sounds like we're bringing both supplies and people. So I would actually probably be packed light so that I could take the people while Gregor can take the supplies.
Was I requested as well? Was Valentina requested?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Starkweather is going to want to want photographs of this to get back to the press post haste.
I was exactly to say that yet.
I understand the mission. Yeah.
I had a brief moment of he's not going to let her burn. Oh no, he wants to be. He's that guy. Oh no. So Stoddard doesn't have he's only got basic first aid. But was it Arctic? He'll basically gather, like basic supplies that he'll try to get supplies that would be useful for this, listening to people that have a little bit better experience than him. But we're looking at potentially having to treat people. What people think we need to grab, he'll basically be hauling stuff and try to load it up. So we're ready to go.
So, as the actual medical professional here, yes, first aid is very important, medical cases. But more important than that, we might want to bring extra blankets, because the most important thing in cases like this is keeping people warm. So get the extra blankets, and let's make sure we have I'll bring my medical case. There's going to be plenty of first aid. And I will explicitly leave my metal flask behind, because now is not the time.
All right. Yeah. So Stoddard will take a cue from Tremblay's instructions. Now that someone with in-game knowledge has given him direction, he will work off of that.
Perfect. So just to make sure nobody's bringing any of the dynamite.
Rescue with dynamite.
I might.
Valentina makes sure that she will have she's bundled up very warmly, so she's going to make sure that she will have easy access to her gun, because you heard there was gunshots over the radio.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm going to bring a stick of dynamite.
Noted.
I'm not even going to bring my hunting knife. I'm leaving that behind. I'm leaving, and I'm assuming I gave you your gun back, Big Suze, so I don't have that either.
Oh, I'm fine with you having the gun full time. I'm definitely bringing my weapons and, again, one stick of dynamite.
Oh, for those South Polar Bears?
You don't know what's up here, down here, wherever we are. You could run into a moose.
Yeah, that's probably the worst thing you could encounter. I'd rather meet a polar bear.
Moose are mean.
And yes, downright ornery. So it's a hard trip, but it's an exciting one. The ground rises and falls in great ridges and waves. At a glance, the terrain appears flat and featureless, but in detail, that's not the reality. There's holes and cracks everywhere, some open up to the sky, some hidden beneath deceptive veneers of thin ice and snow. The air is bitterly cold, breath crackles as it freezes into puffs of white mist. Rime builds quickly on eyebrows and mustaches, and everyone is soon chilled to the bone. Shifting clouds and occasional drifts of fog change the landscape moment to moment. Objects are distorted by the uneven light and lack of reference, frequently appearing yet again much further or nearer than they really are. But the dogs, they're barking and howling as they drive, eager to be out on a run. They don't feel the cold. The world is shades of white and grey, with deep pools of blue here and there in the depths of the icy seams. All you can hear is the sound of the dogs, the squeak and hiss of runners on the snow, and the rustle and crunch of boots and clothing. Pulaski is driving the first sled team with Sue's bringing up just behind her. However, within minutes of departure, Starkweather takes the lead from Pulaski and presses the team on himself with every evidence of glee. His enthusiasm is somewhat contagious for about the first hour of the trip. Nonetheless, traveling this barrier ice field is immensely tiring. There's several long stretches of snow where the sled can move freely, but then the land between is abruptly broken and pressed upward by forces from beneath. There's ridges that can be climbed only with ropes. Sleds, even the dogs, must be pulled or carried over up and down slopes they cannot climb. More than once, you reach impassable ground and have to double back for several hundred yards. By hour 6, every muscle that your bodies have aches. There's no real accidents along the trip. There's some delays due to slips and falls, broken harness here or there, an embarrassing collapse of snow beneath your feet, that sort of thing. So yes, it takes you in all about 2.5 hours to cover the 8 miles to the Lexington camp. The last half mile is swift, because you start to follow the trails and market flags set out by Lexington's group, but you're all weary as the other base camp comes into view. Let me get this set up. There's the fire. So yes, the Lexington Expedition Base Camp is somewhat smaller than yours. There's a single long wooden hut that centers the site with a short row of tents spreading out to either side like the wings of the sides of a V. The generator shack and the radio tower sit in the middle of the V, while the scarred line of the landing strip is off to one side. But yeah, something has gone very, very wrong. The air over the site is full of smoking tanks of smoke and the dark pole of burning fuel. There's pale wisps of steam that curl up from the soot-covered snow where the wet climate and diligent work of the cleaning crew have dampened the flames. But the radio mast has fallen and lies crumpled against the ice. The neat cluster of huts and tents is covered by a thin film of ash, and the pristine whiteness of the snow is marred by gutted remains. One end of the radio hut is blackened and burned. Where the radio generator shack once stood, there is now only the cooling aftermath of a bonfire. Clearly, the Lexington expedition personnel are busy everywhere in trying to pull salvageable goods out of still smoldering tents. Others are clearing wreckage from smashed equipment. And a little distance away are two men who stand by themselves, contemplating the quietly smoking remains of the radio shed. Your dogs excitedly bark and snarl at the stench of the scorched canvas and gasoline as you descend the gentle slope towards the camps. Heads turn around at the unexpected sound of your arrival, and a man makes his way up towards you to greet you, with others following at a distance. Yes, welcome. We heard you were coming. I'm afraid there's not so much for you to do. Miss Lexington would want to see you in the cook shack. Ah, Starkweather replies, a bit taken aback by the forthrightness. Of course, whatever I can do. You knew we were coming? Yeah, the ship told us hours ago on the radio. Your camp is worried for you. Somewhat deflates Starkweather as he follows the man who's introduced himself as I get myself set up correctly. Lexington. He introduces himself as Herr Benche. And Starkweather steps ahead of the rest of you, basically following him back towards the shack that he indicates. And he heads in. Basically, without a word, leaving the rest of you at your own recognizance in the midst of this somewhat chaotic scene.
Valentina would try to snap a picture of the damage and then attempt to follow them and see if she can just kind of overhear what this conversation is going to be.
Certainly. Starkweather turns to her and says, "My dear, I must needs speak to Miss Lexington alone. She needs to hear, no one but her needs to hear what I have to say."
Very well.
However, he doesn't stop you from, for example, moving up towards the shack and standing outside the shack.
I will do that then.
Absolutely. What about the rest of you?
Am I seeing right that their dogs are loose at the top of the image?
Yes.
I will go attend to their dogs.
Perfect.
Is everybody okay? Is there a triage center? Or have most of them been taken care of?
You
Looks like everybody's okay.
you can you ask a random person, and there is a medical tent where the few injured people, as well as the perpetrators, apparently have been taken.
Well, I mean, I'll go there. I wasn't planning on meeting the perpetrators, but that also sounds interesting. Do they need treatment? Did they get burned while trying to perpetrate their crime? 'Cause I can certainly help them.
Apparently, one of them is unconscious.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll head over there.
Okay.
Stoddard will be like, look at it like, I know you said, I know you said you'd sound that you've got most under control. Is there anything that you could use an extra hand on just so someone can have a break? I don't have specialty, but I can move stuff.
Go ahead and roll a d10 for me.
A 3.
A 3. Oh, okay. Cool. So you end up actually, this works out because you end up following Big Sue's out towards the dogs to help corral and settle them down. That seems to be the task most noticeable at hand. So it's as people are spreading out throughout the camp, the first parts of the, well, let's call it discussion, is heard across the camp from the cook shed. As you hear, "Imbecile woman! I should never have allowed you to. How can anyone tolerate your incredible arrogance? You just about had all I can take of your posturing. Don't talk to me about posturing, you pompous, arrogant." And that will basically continue off and on for the next couple of hours. So that's sort of the interrupt background, as every 5 or 10 minutes another argument arises from the cookhouse. Everybody stops and just looks at each other, shrugs, and goes on with putting the camp back together. Meanwhile, Suze and Stoddard, together with Pulaski and Sykes, run into a gentleman by the name of Tuvinen. He's trying to gather and calm the Lexington expedition dogs, but they're in quite the state, howling, whining, barking, and cowering behind their masters. Tuvinen himself is cool, collected, and is doing a decent job, but he's more than happy for the help. He's actually, given the nature of the emergency and the fact that it's 5 a.m, he's surprisingly well dressed for the climate. A lot of the people wandering around are, shall we say, half dressed. They're clearly not in their full 4 layers. And so I guess I could ask Suits or Stoddard if they would care to make a fast talk roll.
I would much prefer to make an animal handling roll to calm down these dogs.
Oh,
Fast talk is
certainly.
going to be kind of a waste for me.
Charles is not good at fast talk.
That's quite all right. But yes, an animal handling roll will come in very handy.
Well, I'm busy with the dogs, Stoddard. I think you got to do it. Also, I'm running base.
God. So, is there any way I could use persuade instead of fast talk for whatever this is?
I can see that. I'll give you that.
Persuaded?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I have more than 5 in persuade. No. He is he's been up too many hours. He is trying to wrangle dogs at 5 a.m. in the snow. He is not very persuasive to whoever he's supposed to talk to.
Yeah, well, Tuvinen in stereotypically traditional Finnish manner it's a man of very few words, it seems, and is just very busy keeping the dogs as calm and still as he can get them. And certainly he seems to appreciate Big Sue's help in this, but he doesn't really vocalize any of that. You do hear him mutter that, oh, just as well the madman got caught. Meanwhile, down in the medical tent, where we find a Dr. Anthony hurrying out back towards his own tent. He's coming from his tent towards the medical tent with his doctor's bag and practically runs into Dr. Tremblay. He's not really looking where he's going. Is Dr. Tremblay openly carrying a medical bag, or is he just...
Oh, absolutely. I have my medical case on me. And I see this person practically stumbling over me with their own medical case, and I say, doctor, in a hurry, perhaps I can lend my aid.
Oh, yes, well, and he stops his rush and pulls you sort of aside a little bit, which is a little bit odd given that you're standing out in the middle of the Antarctic ice mass. And in a hushed voice says that I have the 2 perpetrators inside. I believe they're suffering an acute case of snow craze brought on by these desolate surroundings. I've gotten to know the men well, and they're clearly both quite mad. Dinsdale is awake and, by all means, talk to him. Regretfully, Bradbury has slipped into some kind of catatonia, and I think it's for his own best that he recover at his own pace.
Interesting. So most of their ailments are mental, so to speak. They're having psychological issues, it seems.
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, that is not one of my part of my expertise. Was anybody caught in the fires? Was there any sort of injuries that I could help with?
Well, Albert Priestley was grazed by one of the bullets that that Dinsdale and Bradbury let off. Here, come on in. You can see, and he takes you into the medical tent, which is quite bare, frankly. There's a man sitting on a folding stool, watching over a unconscious man lying on a steel frame bed, and another man huddled up in his furs in the corner. Presumably that's Bradbury and Dinsdale. The man on the stool doesn't look particularly happy and has a thick blood-soaked bandage on his left cheek.
I'm going to walk over first to the one that's unconscious, and can I kind of do a look over and check him to see, is he like unconscious from does it look like it's a blow to the head, or is he, like you said, he's sort of become catatonic due to the trauma? What can I kind of discern from looking him over?
Go ahead and give me a medicine roll. Okay, so with a hard success, you don't find any immediately clear reason medically why this man should be unconscious, which leads, and given the Dr. Anthony's description of catatonia, you're tempted to agree that this looks like a case of a person who's shut down for some sort of psychological trauma rather than physical trauma.
Very odd. Usually that's not something that happens just out of the blue. The other one that's cuddling or cowering in the corner with the furs, is he looking at us? Can I get his attention?
Yes, absolutely.
I say, are you okay, sir? Or are you friends with this gentleman here? What happened? What's been going on?
Well, it was. It's just so strange. I woke up earlier and there were spiders everywhere. I hate spiders. I absolutely hate them. I came upon this trip because there aren't supposed to be any spiders in Antarctica. My first thought was to just burn them out. I mean, I never considered the reasonableness of it. But spiders. Why is it always spiders?
Okay, so you saw spiders. Is that the same thing that, and I point to the unconscious gentleman, is that the same thing that he saw? Why were you both involved?
I don't know. All I know is he whatever he saw he needed to shoot.
Okay, so he was the one shooting. And that's all you remember is just waking up and there were spiders everywhere.
Yep. That's the last time I believe anybody's saying there's no spiders in Antarctica.
I turned away from him and I turned back to the other doctor, Dr. Anthony, I believe. And I'm like,
Yep.
I completely am baffled by all this. None of this actually makes sense. For a psychosis to split at the same time for both these gentlemen and for them to go on this kind of rampage at the same time, I don't understand it. It just doesn't make sense.
It's roundabout now the crescendo comes from the cookhouse. The spirited conversation between Lexington and Starkweather continues along the lines of Viper, buffoon, Harrigan, incompetent. Hold your tongue, woman, or so help me, I shall take you over my knee. Starkweather throws open of the door, striding out, emotional woman. No damn place in the Antarctic. And it's but a few minutes later that the rescue party is headed back to your own camp, just driven by Starkweather's icy rage. He's completely icy quiet for at least an hour. Well, apart from mushing on the dogs. Sykes and Dr. Green have stayed behind to help the Lexington group rebuild. The trip back is basically uneventful.
One quick question, Stefan.
Yeah.
Once he leaves the building that he was in with her, is she anywhere nearby? Like, is she just inside the door?
She's visible from inside, just inside the door. Yeah, sure.
Valentina would just say, "He seems a bit emotional, doesn't he?" And then she'll go and ask. I guess she'll ask if she would say, "Stay safe and good luck" before she left.
There is a loud bah in response. My luck would be that brigand being on the other side of the earth. As the door slams. But yes, you end up returning by the late afternoon of the 20th to what seems like an almost absurdly normal base camp. Moore comes out and asks you basically about what happened. Is somewhat both concerned but satisfied when he hears that it was just snow madness. He says, "Well, go get some rest. You've earned it." And which point he turns the page on his clipboard, whistles a tuneless tune to himself, and wanders off, looking at his notes. So on the 21st, things basically progress in the background. Buildings are constructed. The hangars are starting to be put up. Professor Moore is spending most of his time on the radio, while Starkweather randomly rages about the camp, issuing perfunctory orders of "Don't dig that tent here, dig it over there. What are you thinking?" Then on the afternoon of the 22nd, Sykes and Green return, accompanied by Priestley and Acacia Lexington. And there's some quieter conversations that take place between them, Moore, and Starkweather. Lexington and Priestley pitch a pair of tents to one side of the camp. Lexington spending her time closeted with Starkweather and Moore. And after about 48 hours, probably thanks to Moore's judicious diplomacy, it seems that the two teams have come to an uneasy alliance. There's a meeting held, and the news is presented that the Lexington and Starkweather-Moore expeditions are to join forces. Her plane will replace the Shackleton that you lost at sea. Moore offers food and his base's radio and power facilities to supplement Lexington's damaged stores and equipment, and she's going to provide fuel and help fly Starkweather's men and material to Lake's camp and beyond. Once then the camps at Lake's camp and the high plateau have been made, Lexington is welcome to use them as bases for her photographs and mapping ventures. Bargain is struck, probably to everyone's advantage, but neither Lexington or Starkweather seem very happy. And it is on that note that we will finish off tonight. So thank you yet again, everybody, for coming along with us through our tribulations and adventures on the Arctic ice. And we hope to be back soon with yet more adventures. So we'll see you then. Good night.